In this video, I will revisit these sections from the Iceberg with new information that I found in the comments of the first Iceberg video. If you haven't, be sure to watch the previous Iceberg video. Afterward, I will talk about some brand new entries that were not included in the previous video. The confidence meter is on the top left. Let's start off with what went wrong. D2 Coast 06. Many comments mention that D2 Coast 06 is the map used in Half-Life 2 Lost Coast, a cut level from Highway 17. Lost Coast was released as a tech demo to showcase the newly implemented high dynamic range rendering in the source engine. Although it was a part of the Coast chapter, I couldn't find any evidence that Lost Coast is D2 Coast 06. The only evidence of D2 Coast 06 that I could find is this YouTube video of someone bunny hopping through the supposed map. The map appears to only be a highway road with early renditions of the landscape. Although it may be possible this map evolved into Lost Coast, this video seems to be the sole piece of evidence towards the map's existence. Citadel Screams. Plenty of comments have told me about how the Challenger disaster theory does not apply to the Citadel Screams found in Half-Life 2. This theory could apply to a particular beta audio file, which has been speculated to have used distressed cosmonaut communications about their burning spacecraft. This will be discussed later in the video. Hallucination stuff. The creator of the Iceberg, Sockman1, responded to my video and mentioned hallucination stuff, an unused viz group from the Half-Life 2 beta leak. The viz group shows an eerily distorted picture of the G-Man, who is tinted blue in the image. It appears that this viz group was supposed to be a part of the E3 2003 demo of Half-Life 2. Comments mention how this entry could be referring to Hazard 01, a Half-Life 2 beta map created by series writer Mark Laidlaw that is basically a tutorial level, similar to Half-Life's Hazard course. In the map, the player can encounter the G-Man in a darkened room with psychedelic effects flashing all over him. He tells the player to return back to where they came from and to not speak about seeing him. These effects are similar to Psyche, an E3 demo that begins with a collection of distorted images flying through the screen. These psychedelic images include the G-Man, Striders, and the Hydra. The demo ends with a close-up of the G-Man remarking about old times, possibly to Freeman, before the Half-Life 2 logo appears. Other comments also bring up Prop Hallucination, a prop entity that would disappear as soon as the player looks at it. This prop was data mined from the game Alien Swarm, among other strings and entities that could have been used in Episode 3. It's all a simulation. Sockman1 and other commenters informed me of how the Half-Life games could be a simulation because of the fail-state screens. Whenever the player gets an important NPC killed or destroys an important mission object, the screen fades to black before text scrolls across the screen. This text elaborates on how Freeman failed his task because he lost either mission-critical items or personnel. The screens could be interpreted as Freeman breaking the simulation, as it didn't account for the outcome of losing those items. Another comment mentions how the G-Man's offer in Half-Life could be offering Freeman to participate in a simulation, or in this case, Half-Life 2. If the player accepts the G-Man's offer, the text where it states that Freeman is hired could be the simulation's initiation, as the G-Man begins compiling City 17 in a Combine-ruled Earth. He could be preparing Freeman for something much stronger, something much more sinister than the Combine. The G-Man is an advisor. Many comments told me about the YouTube channel Max Darrett, who made 2 in-depth videos about Half-Life and his theory about the G-Man being an advisor. His theory is the most solid theory about the G-Man being an advisor, and I highly encourage everyone to watch the videos. Now, I'm going to summarize Darrett's findings and try my best not to butcher them. According to the Greengrub Twitter account, advisors in the larval form can have seemingly infinite knowledge and can share information with other larvae, sort of like a form of currency. This infinite knowledge obviously interests the Combine because they could use it to achieve universal domination. Perhaps the advisor's knowledge is responsible for giving the Combine the capabilities of taking over Earth in 7 hours. The Sh'ulathoi who were not under the control of the Combine either fled or went to a hibernation so deep it could last for thousands of years in order to prevent any knowledge from getting leached out by the Combine. One other thing an advisor can do is hatch, which leads to Darrett's theory about the G-Man. Greengrub elaborates on how the advisors have enough psychic power to choose what form they will take when they hatch. This means a hatch advisor could have taken the form of the G-Man, with his employers being the remaining Sh'ulathoi larvae. Because the larvae's knowledge, which includes how to construct universes and bring order to them, is being threatened by the Combine, they sent out the G-Man to intervene and act as an interdimensional bureaucrat. He would be responsible for finding candidates to help fight the Combine, which could be why he has taken a human form, as humans can be intelligent, strong, and persistent at the same time. The G-Man did source the Zen Crystal and caused the Black Mesa incident to demonstrate how humans could be a powerful candidate for the She'ulathoi. With the knowledge from the quote-unquote employers, the G-Man can effectively find and recruit extraordinarily powerful humans, such as Gordon Freeman. He knows it only takes one person to cause a massive disruption in international authority, or in his own words,
"The right man in the wrong place can make all the difference in the world."
What Freeman accomplishes in the series is remarkable. Even members of the Resistance consider him a messiah. So, it was important for the advisors to recruit Freeman to maintain the universal order they had established and to prevent their own demise at the hands of humanity. If more people were like Freeman and formed a powerful union like the Combine, they could become the greatest threat against the She'ulathoi, who realized his potential and immediately enlisted Freeman to prevent such an outcome. Because of the advisor's universal control, humanity would never be truly free. If somehow Freeman severed the connection between the universe and the She'ulathoi, what would happen? Who would be responsible, or even capable, for maintaining the order of the universe? Should Freeman liberate humanity from the advisor's control, only to bring utter chaos to the universe? Or should he concede to the fact that humanity will always be in the hands of the She'ulathoi, never living a full life? If you want to skip this part to avoid Half-Life Alyx spoilers, go to this timestamp shown on the screen. Half-Life Alyx's alternate timelines. The community is firm in the belief that the Half-Life timeline has been split into two, one where Eli remains dead, with the events of Episode 3 occurring afterwards, and one where Eli is resurrected, which is the timeline Valve wants to explore. The G-Man is certainly responsible for creating two timelines, which could be the unforeseen consequence he mentioned in Episode 2. To do so, he took himself and Alyx to Episode 2's ending so Alyx can save her father. After saving her father, Alyx is then taken into stasis and the end credit scene happens and the game ends, right? That means there are two timelines, correct? Well, here's one thing that could be possible. What if the G-Man was not responsible for the timeline split? Or better yet, what if there is no other timeline? I mentioned in the previous video about how Alyx could have had her memories wiped and awakened in the vault's rubble to progress into Half-Life 2. Recently, I'm not quite sure about this idea because she was put into stasis, but it might have been a fake out from the G-Man. However, this comment mentions how the vault could have created a clone of Alyx. The final room the player is in is mirrored vertically, and a clone Alyx could have been created. The clone teleports off of the vault through the mirrored portal on top, while real Alyx enters the portal on the bottom into the G-Man's chamber. However, I'm unsure of what would happen should the two Alyxes meet in any future games. It could be some sort of Avengers Endgame situation, with the two Alyxes meeting each other and possibly antagonizing each other. The 19-year-old Alyx could think Freeman is an enemy from being tricked in the vault and being held in stasis for possibly years. The timeline is still a mess, with so many interpretations and theories of what could have happened. If I confused you about the timeline, trust me, I'm confused as well. It seems we'll have to wait for Valve to give us the answer about what the hell happened. Well, that's all the entries that need to be revisited. Now I've gathered some new entries that I would like to explain. I guess you could say I kind of made my own Iceberg. Anyway, let's start going through this new list. The Cinematic Mod. The Cinematic Mod is a mod created by Jürgen Wichalig, a German IT service employee who also goes by Fake Factory. The Cinematic Mod drastically alters Half-Life 2 and its episodes with cinematic effects, new music, gameplay changes, new weapons, and new models for the NPCs. Fake Factory created the mod as a side project to practice his modeling and texturing skills. The mod received harsh criticism from the community as they believed some of the changes were too suggestive and inappropriate for the Half-Life universe. The optional NPC models have jiggle physics and are just way too out of place for this game. Graffiti found throughout the game is replaced with suggestive images, including Russian Playboy magazine covers. In Black Mesa East, Fake Factory added Alyx's room, where you can find this. I'm sure you understand the backlash some people had against this mod. Updates have ended as of now, with Fake Factory citing the criticism being the main reason for ceasing development. Half-Life Alpha. Half-Life version 0.52, or simply known as the Half-Life Alpha, is an early build of Half-Life created on September 8, 1997. The build was supposed to be given to game journalists and was made before the 1997 rework. In the rework, Valve significantly revised Half-Life, such as redesigning levels and improving the AI, because it simply didn't meet their expectations. On December 31st, 2012, Reddit user JackalJazer uploaded a photo of a CD-ROM disc with the Half-Life Alpha label. This post became the first appearance of the build shown to the community. The Alpha build was released a year later after another Reddit user realized they had a copy and dumped the build online. The three weapons used by the player are the crowbar, the Glock, and the MP5, with all the guns having infinite ammo. The game features an unfinished HUD and runs on a modified Quake engine, a predecessor to Gold Source. The Alpha build contains 6 chapters, which mostly resemble their respective final chapters, although with drastically different level designs, and a plot that is almost identical to the final game's storyline. Some Half-Life Icebergs I came across mentioned a Half-Life Alpha version 0.61, with a warning not to research it. Pretty creepy, huh? Anyways, I researched it, and I found absolutely nothing, except for this YouTube video titled Half-Life Alpha .61, but that's pretty much it, and there's nothing creepy about the video. It's probably a joke entry to inspire some creepypasta, but it could also be a nod to the Super Mario 64 Iceberg, which had a similar entry. Half-Life 2 Survivor. Half-Life 2 Survivor is a Japan-exclusive arcade game based on Half-Life 2. Valve and Taito collaborated on Survivor because Taito sought an FPS experience for their new Type X arcade machines. The controls consisted of 2 joysticks and 2 feet pedals. Moving and shooting are controlled by the joysticks, while crouching and jumping are controlled by the foot pedals. The arcade game has 3 modes the player can choose from. Story mode provides an abridged version of Half-Life 2 storyline, which mostly consists of the combat sections. Most of the scripted sequences are cut and replaced with skippable cutscenes. Battle mode is a 4v4 deathmatch where the player can choose from a selection of classes such as a ranger, soldier, and medic. Mission mode is a co-op mode where a team up to 4 players can fight against enemies to complete an assigned objective. One interesting note, some cut content from Half-Life 2 is used in Survivor. The cut sniper rifle is shown as a weapon in battle mode, and the Combine Assassin model is used for the female Combine sniper. City 14. At the train station in Half-Life 2, the player can encounter 2 citizens discussing their dismay at seeing Breen again after leaving City 14.
Dr. Breen again? I was hoping I'd seen the last of him in City 14. I wouldn't say that too loud. This is his base of operations.
The mention of City 14 brings an aura of mystery surrounding it, intentional or not, because of the citizens' dialogue and its absence in the train's schedule. People speculate on how the city could have been bombarded with headcrab torpedoes, or with something else that made it inhabitable. The trains could only be departing to escape the city, leading to its exclusion from the schedule. Who knows what could have been going on in the city? And, more likely than not, Valve won't explore this mystery ever again. The Cremator. The Cremator is a cut Combine enemy from Half-Life 2, where they act as a janitor by burning any corpses and foreign wildlife found throughout the city. They use the Emulator, a cannon that fires a corrosive green beam to remove any organic matter. Their heads were manufactured by child workers in dedicated cremator factories. This suggests that these cremators could have been heavily modified humans, or non-human synths like Striders or Hunters. Its head could also be thrown at enemies through the Brick Bat, an unused weapon that allowed the player to throw a specific set of props. The cremator's behavior would be passive until the uprising occurs, causing them to be hostile towards the player and the resistance. The only appearance of the cremator in the final game is in Black Mesa East, where its head is preserved in a jar. If the player approaches the jar, Eli Vance remarks,
"We're still not sure what that does. Alyx brings in the strangest things."
The cremator was going to return in Half-Life Alyx, where they would be responsible for removing overgrown Zen fauna. They would be replaced with the Combine hazmat workers, only seen as corpses scattered around in the quarantine zone. Alyx's deaf boyfriend. After releasing Episode 2, Valve began considering adding a deaf character into the Half-Life universe to explore how to improve games for hearing-impaired players. Gabe Newell, along with sign language interpreters, spoke about this hearing-impaired character to an audience with hearing loss, explaining how Alyx Vance would have had a crush on this character before meeting Gordon Freeman. She would program Dog with sign language knowledge, so she could practice while the character was away fighting the Combine. Alyx would also use sign language to silently communicate with Dog when enemies are nearby. Each of the Half-Life 2 episodes showcased a new technology that Valve incorporated into their source engine. HDR and better NPC interaction with Alyx was introduced in Episode 1. Large-scale battles and outdoor environments that weren't previously possible in the source engine was shown in Episode 2. The inclusion of sign language was going to be the new technology presented in Episode 3 before it was ultimately cancelled. Race X. Race X is a mysterious alien race who appears in Half-Life Opposing Force. They originate from a homeworld that is beyond Zen and was attracted to Earth after the Black Mesa incident created portal storms. Shock troopers, with shock roaches as their weapon, make up the bulk of Race X's Earth presence. Shock troopers have similar tactics to human soldiers, such as flanking and using spore grenades to flush out enemies. They seem to have mastered teleportation technology, as shock troopers could willingly summon pit drones and volticores for additional combat support. Race X aliens seem to be uninvolved with the conflict between the Combine and Zen aliens. Instead, they want to take any of Earth's natural resources and bring them back to their home planet. To accomplish this goal, Race X brought in gene worms, who are described as biological resource management factories, as they slowly consume Earth to gather those resources. If one gene worm enters Earth and goes into full production, they can alter Earth to make it more suitable for Race X habitation. Fortunately, Adrian Shepard put an end to this invasion after he killed the first gene worm that appeared on Earth. Mark Laidlaw said he does not think Race X is a part of the Half-Life universe. The aliens are a creation from Gearbox Software and were designed to provide an interesting gameplay experience rather than expanding the existing storyline. Gearbox artist Stephen Ball also clarified that Gearbox created Race X only to diversify the enemy pool and not change any of Valve's established story. Return to Ravenholm. Return to Ravenholm is a cancelled Half-Life 2 spin-off developed by Arcane Studios. No Clips documentary about Arcane Studios provided the most information about this game. I recommend watching it if you want a more in-depth dive about Return to Ravenholm. The game depicted the return of Adrian Shepard, who awakens in a classroom and is immediately accompanied by Father Grigori. Grigori holds down a barricade to prevent zombies from entering before it breaks down, causing them to evacuate the school. The rest of the game shows the characters going through a city and an asylum before ultimately returning back to Ravenholm. Throughout the game, Father Grigori can be seen injecting headcrab blood into his neck and slowly becomes mutated. Soon, he becomes a mutated monster after the growth on his neck explodes. Arcane Studios never fully revealed the game's ending, with Shepard's fate left seemingly unknown. Most of the gameplay revolves around electricity, as the player can activate electric traps to kill enemies. The player uses a nail gun that creates electricity networks to solve puzzles and damage enemies. They also use the charge gun, a weapon that fires a large energy ball if it's near an electricity source. Headcrabs, fast headcrabs, and regular zombies are in the game, with headcrab zombies being absent in the spin-off. The new zombies will be faster and smarter, along with attacking in large hordes. They can be easily distracted by flashing lights or loud sounds, with one example being a film projector that the player can activate. There are other zombie variations in the spin-off. Acid zombies, similar to Left 4 Dead spitters, would spit toxic projectiles and are stronger than zombies. Zombie monkeys, who are mutated from headcrab blood, would jump around and throw objects at the player. Valve decided to cancel Return to Ravenholm as they thought Ravenholm was explored enough from Half-Life 2, and having the story set before Episode 2 imposed a creative constraint on the developers. It seems Shepard would have to wait for another appearance in the Half-Life series. Half-Life Hostile Takeover. Half-Life Hostile Takeover is a cancelled expansion pack developed by 2015 Incorporated, focusing on a character similar to the G-Man. This character would partially cause the Black Mesa incident and search for potential candidates. The setting would be a support facility for Black Mesa called Allied Processing, which houses an interdimensional portal used for collecting Zen samples. The Team Fortress characters, which Valve recently acquired, act as Allied Processing's private military guards. The player becomes the guards' partners and assists them in their fight against the government military forces. The rest of the game consisted of the player going through a variety of locations on the surface and underground as they try to escape the facility. The developers at 2015 never revealed the ultimate ending of the expansion pack. Development of Hostile Takeover began after 2015 founder Tom Kaderka met with Gabe Newell after Valve expressed interest in having 2015 develop an expansion pack for Half-Life. The game was never officially announced, with only rumors spreading around the community. The earliest reference comes from an April 1999 GameSpot article, which mentions that 2015 is developing a Half-Life expansion pack. However, the cancellation of the expansion pack was announced on August 7, 2000, through the Adrenaline Vault. They reported on how a listing for Half-Life Hostile Takeover changed to Half-Life Counter-Strike. No official reason was given for the cancellation, but 2015 developers speculate that Valve was worried about oversaturating the market with Half-Life games. Icky Pop. Icky Pop is a map Mark Laylaw created during Half-Life 2's development. It begins with the player floating on a raft holding a pair of binoculars. Then an ichthyosaur swims over the dock before jumping out of the water and tearing the dock apart. The creature then emerges from the water and flies into the sky, defecating jibs along the way. The beast begins to lose altitude until it crashes into the hill in the background. An orange smokestack forms from the crash site before the G-Man appears, with a crow carrying him as he ominously floats overhead. The purpose of this map is unknown, but it's most likely that this map was made as a joke. On a Rail Screams. Throughout the Half-Life chapter, On a Rail, otherworldly screams could be heard within the decommissioned rail system. There has been a lot of speculation on what exactly these screams are. Some claim these screams could be enslaved Vortigaunts suffering, or new alien creatures Freeman has yet to encounter. Others speculate these screams are related to the various NPC sounds made by the Red Portal that teleports Freeman to the Nylon's chamber. The Nylon could be psychically projecting these screams into Freeman's mind to impose a threat. They could also be hallucinations that Freeman experiences due to the heavy physical and mental trauma he suffers throughout the Black Mesa incident. XCCR. At the beginning of Half-Life 2, the player can encounter a red billboard with XCCR written in yellow. The community began to speculate on what this XCCR could mean, leading to a website being found. This site would have an interface where the user could input any number which outputted a random image. According to the website, the correct code must be entered every 90 minutes to help solve a puzzle. Failure to do so would reset the puzzle. Some numbers would cause the site to show a 10x10 grid, possibly a visual representation of the puzzle. Going through an index of the website's images shows that most of the files were created near Half-Life 2's release date. It's unknown what the ultimate goal is for XCCR.com, and if it's even related to Half-Life at all. It could be a fan-made ARG, or alternate reality game, to increase the creepiness of the mysterious billboard. It's unknown if the puzzle has ever been solved, or what its true meaning could be. The answer to XCCR may be lost, as the site and YouTube channel lay dormant for years. Mr. Friendly. Mr. Friendly was a cut enemy from Half-Life that would be a creature who possessed hooved hind legs and tentacle arms in the front. Its movement has been described as awkward shuffling with the horns in the front making a harsh grinding noise on the ground, similar to scratching a chalkboard with fingernails. It was a scavenger as it consumed corpses throughout the game, which served as the logical explanation for corpses that go missing. One of its most infamous mechanics would be fatal copulation, or in other words, it would the player to death. According to the book Half-Life 2 Raising the Bar, artist Ted Backman was recruited by Valve's Ken Birdwall. Backman introduced Mr. Friendly along with other sexual-oriented aliens to Gabe Newell, who was the managing director at the time. Despite Birdwell's doubts, Newell embraced the idea and discussed with Beckman about sexual alien behavior and clinical adolescent sexual fantasies. They even discussed how these behaviors could provoke a homophobic reaction from the game's majority audience, which are 14-year-old boys. Mr. Friendly became Bagman's favorite monster and was present in the game until the beginning of 1998, where it was ultimately cut. Trans 6. Trans6.wave is a sound file found in the Half-Life 2 beta leak. People speculate this sound would be heard in the Beta Citadel, referring to the Citadel screams from earlier. The sound can be heard in Hazard 01 when the player goes through a corridor before opening the door at the end to see the G-Man. Trans6.wave is also heard at the beginning of the Psyche demo. People have mentioned these screams are from recordings made by the Giudica Cordelia brothers, who were Italian amateur radio operators. These recordings were secretly made in the 1960s to support the theory that the Soviet Union had covered up failed space launches, which resulted in numerous cosmonaut deaths. Over 4 years, the brothers had produced 9 recordings, which included a cosmonaut suffocating to death and a cosmonaut losing control of his spacecraft before veering into deep space. The recording allegedly used in Trans 6 is of a female Soviet cosmonaut burning to death in her spacecraft as it re-enters Earth's atmosphere. However, the recording's validity has been contested throughout time. Discrepancies such as cosmonauts not following standard communications protocol and grammatical errors are found in their speech. The cosmonaut screaming does sound similar to Trans 6, which adds to the darker atmosphere the beta was aiming for. Real or not, the thought of dying in space, where no one can see you, hear you, or even save you, is truly horrifying. Thank you very much for watching. This video took a considerable amount of work, and I'd appreciate if you guys could like, comment, and subscribe. And thanks again for watching, and stay safe. No promises on a third Half-Life Iceberg, sorry guys.